Hello, and welcome to the Mind of the Hacker. Hackers have disrupted the UK National Health Service and countless other organisations, so security remains and will remain a big problem for government, for enterprise, and for individuals alike. And the hackers are not just script kiddies, but international gangs and states as well. So to get better at catching and preventing those hacks, we need to get into the mind of the hacker. So I asked 4 security experts for their take on the matter. And first I wanted to know, just who are the hackers?
Hackers come from a number of backgrounds as a generic term. So first of all, we have hackers who act on behalf of states to be able to achieve end states for states. We have criminals whose aim is to carry out criminal activities. We have hacktivists who are people who operate in a sort of their own cause célèbre. And we have sort of script kiddies who are the modern day cyber version of, antisocial youths, if you like. So I think there's a lot of people with these skills, all who apply them for just very different purposes.
One of the biggest challenges here is ultimately getting inside the mind of the hacker, and of course that is the sort of theme of this whole project. We can do a lot, looking in open sources and social media and so on. We can harvest the way people discuss issues and so on, and we can track new types of malware, and we can do all those kinds of things. But ultimately, to get inside someone's mind is incredibly difficult. And so really, it's the biggest thing a government can do is actually share information. And I think that's perhaps the most transformational change. All governments face this risk of cyber crime. As has been noted, there's much more cyber crime than there is government-led sort of hacking, espionage. So if governments worked more closely together, shared those insights, that would be a huge multiplication of resources, and that's probably the way we need to go.
Where do defenders have the advantage over hackers?
So we usually hear that attackers really has the advantage over the defenders because they need to be right only one time, whereas the defenders need to be right all the time. So as I see it, in order to beat the attacker, you need to basically become the hunter and not being the hunted itself. So take more proactive measurement. So instead of putting all this preventative measurement, which works by the way, but as an attacker, it's very easy for me to bypass them if I just simulate them correctly. I, as a defender, should work with more proactive, trying to hunt down indicators that something has went down and a breach already occurred. This actually changed completely the attacker's knowledge about what's going to happen, because in a proactive measurement, he wouldn't be able to tell when it's going to be detected, whereas in preventive measurement, he can always simulate what the product is doing and bypassing it.
Which areas of vulnerability present the greatest threats to economic well-being at both the company and state levels?
So I think at company levels, the biggest risk is the sort of aggregated criminality. Criminality is the biggest risk. Organisations know businesses are both vulnerable and priced and operationally sensitive. So therefore, there is a perfect storm, if you like, for them to employ. So I think pure criminality. Businesses may suffer from other elements, but generally it is that area. From a state level, I think we have to recognise that all organisations, all other states are going to develop some degree of weaponising capability. And I think the biggest risk is not actually the deployment of that capability, because we all learn how to deal with that. It's the accidental misjudgment, R&D mistakes, which can cause problems, which can have an inflammatory effect.
IT responds to cyber attacks, I think, in a very patchy way. Some are exemplary. They have a history of dealing with such cyber attacks. So industries like financial services, telecommunications, what I would call the spooky parts of government defense and intelligence, that kind of thing. So they're at one end of the extreme. At the other end of the extreme, there are lots of other industry types, media, manufacturing, healthcare, legal, those kind of industries that have no real history or pedigree of dealing with cyber attacks, certainly no long-term history, and so they're having to learn as they go, and it's a pretty steep learning curve at the moment. So it's very patchy. Lots of different capabilities are out there.
But what can government do to persuade online platforms and social media to behave in a secure fashion?
To ask the platforms to be able to operate in a way in which I would consider to be socially responsible. And so if you are a provider of a public service, you have to operate in a socially responsible manner. I think these organisations are very new. I don't think they understand the implications of such social responsibility yet. It has to be a dialogue. This cannot be enforced entirely through compliance-driven or governance or regulation, but actually there may have to be a little bit of a kickstart to actually force the organisations themselves to realise there is a relationship they must have. But I think part of that too is about the narrative with the consumers. I think if the consumers are actually reasonably comfortable with a sensible, balanced relationship between their platform and government, that will make it commercially easier for these organisations to be able to justify it from a pure trading sense.
How do you see the security relationships between government, enterprises and the IT industry changing in future?
I think government has a very difficult relationship with industry. Governments view the market and the threat in a very different way. There's almost an existential threat to the nation or society, and government is the custodian of that, and so it takes it very seriously. Companies need to do business. That's what they're there for, and they have this way of assessing risk, and they take a very pragmatic view to risk assessment. So they will, because they have to balance up security with doing business. Sometimes security just gets in the way.
How can we balance the need for cybersecurity and the desire for an open society?
Ultimately, there may be people who have offensive and extremist ideas, but it doesn't make them terrorists. So that will always be an aspect of an open society. There are already laws that prevent people from encouraging acts of terror. So we may not need new laws. Equally, I think it's very unlikely that messaging apps such as WhatsApp are going to be comfortable providing a backdoor to governments. I think that's not likely. So I think whilst it's understandable that there's a lot of sort of jostling and a lot of talk about new laws, I don't think we're really likely to see that.
Companies need to store audit logs, whether from file system access, Active Directory. That's the first thing that will help them to start going to proactive measurement. And the second thing is to actually acquire the knowledge, which is, by the way, not so hard, of how to use the right technology today of big data and machine learning that would actually help them finding the breach that already occurred, and instead of it being after 150, 60 days, in a matter of days and hours, which usually it's most crucial when we're talking about a breach.
So there we have it. Hacking is not going to disappear overnight. It's criminal activity, so you might even say that it's inherent to the human condition. But we need to, and can, get better at stopping it.